everyone. This is W, host of this podcast feature known as Surprise Cast. When's the last time you completely surrendered yourself to an artist's work? Well, I'm here to talk about my most recent experience, succumbing to the sweet, dreamy, mysterious sounds of Sister Ray Davies. Today, we have Adam and Jamie inside the digital studio to discuss their brand new, outstanding new album, Holy Island. Let us welcome them to Surprise Cast. Hello, Adam. Welcome back.
Thanks for having us back, W. Good to be here.
Good to see you. How the hell have you been?
Doing great. It's been quite a year. It's been about a year, exactly, right, since we talked last. And, we hadn't even announced the record at that point. And so we had quite the rollout. And then I'm fresh-ish back from the UK. We had a really amazing tour over there. So, yeah, it's been a great year.
Jamie, nice to meet you. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, and it's great to be here. Thanks for having us.
You're welcome. What's been going on in your life recently?
Just had my first son, first little boy, first little guy. He came 2 months early, so that's been a big ordeal, but he's doing great. He's almost 8 pounds now.
Congratulations. And I'm sure you've heard this from many people. It goes by really fast. Enjoy. I'm happy for you. Adam, before we get into the belly of this conversation, I spoke with a gentleman by the name of Andrew Sheriff a couple weeks ago. Guitarist, singer-songwriter for the band Chapter House. And he had some wonderful things to say about your band. So, I've been waiting to ask you this question. Could you please tell the listeners and me this amazing experience you had over in the UK whilst touring and opening up for Chapter House?
I listened to your conversation with Andy. It was great. I was tickled that you asked about us and Rachel at the same time. It's like, this is fine company to be in. And yeah, that's how the shows felt as well. For us, we made this record not in isolation, but it was definitely, me and Jamie kind of, I always say this in interviews, just having fun and doing what interests us. For that to spiral in a good way. I guess spiraling most of the time is bad, but spiral in a good way towards this record coming out and that tour. And yeah, just kind of pinching ourselves that we got to play with Chapter House. There's bands that I wasn't sure I would ever see live. So to not only get to see them, but to be a part of those nights was really, really special. And it was cool to be around. They're all sweet guys. And yeah, just again, to be a small fly on the wall to that scene, that was very cool. It's a great adventure as well.
So you get this email from the band? You get a phone call? What was it? And what was your initial reaction?
The process there was our label, Sonic Cathedral. Nat is obviously very well connected with the whole scene, really, and is just such a good dude and has been so good to us. And obviously I was a huge fan of what he does before working with him. But yeah, he said, and we kind of knew that this may be the case, that Jamie, the timing wasn't going to work with the birth of his first kid, but he's Matt asked us, hey, I think we could put some dates together around this Chapter House reunion. Are you interested? And it was like, well, I think we have to say yes to that. So
I just think, what a gift that was presented to you. Not to say you didn't earn it by any means, but I just can't imagine to be a fly on the wall, to receive that news, to have that connection, and now to put that in your back pocket.
Yeah, it was really special. And again, it's not something that you necessarily expect, because I didn't expect them to be playing shows, so it was layer upon layer of, it was great. And I enjoyed listening to your chat with him, because you asked questions that I would have asked for sure about the making of those records and kind of the band's history. You know, the shoegaze scene is interesting for us because we're both in our late 30s. So we're not young, but we also missed the first wave. We didn't get to experience the actual late 80s, early 90s when all these bands were active. So, you know, Slow Dive comes back 10 years ago and it's like, oh my God, they're making music again. And now to see others follow suit has been really cool. And to get to, again, the fact that we got to play with them and hang out was just, it was great.
Well, congratulations to the entire band. And I'm going to read a quote by a gentleman who goes by the name of Bono. Music can change the world because it can change people. So what I would like to know from you, Jamie, is when did music begin to grab hold of your life? How did it shape you? How did it change you? How did it mold you?
That's a great question. I've always, like, my mom and dad would sing when I was a kid. I always thought that was great. We went to church. So the typical, like, Southern thing of, you experience live music in church from a young age. But it was just kind of, it was like in the late 90s, it felt like it was just pervasive, alt rock and just all kinds of rock. And it was just always something that I gravitated towards in all kinds of different, whatever, genres at the time. This seems like it's just always been there. I remember somebody asked me why I picked up guitar the other day, and it was my neighbor. I had one of my like best friend at the time when I was like 9, picked up guitar and seemed to be able to play it just within weeks, and that was, I think, what made me decide, like, oh, that looks really fun.
Adam, what about for you?
I mean, some of my earliest memories are, I'll just stay with the source of the quote, are listening to U2 with my dad. And just the cinematic nature of that. And I think we talked last time about kind of flipping through and, realizing, oh, this is a Daniel Lanois and Brian Eno production. Who are those people? And then you start digging. And, I think people have been a little surprised maybe that Jamie and I make the music that we do, given the location and kind of the rural South. And ultimately, I don't know if Jamie would disagree with this, but the American suburban experience, it definitely isn't universal, but, we, just like a lot of folks our age everywhere, grew up going to the record store and like going through the used CD bin or the used tape bin or whatever, and kind of gravitating towards, for me, it was like, oh, I gotta get the greatest or the Bob Dylan greatest hits or whatever it was. And then you kind of use that as your launching point for the next thing. I know Jamie has just an insane encyclopedic knowledge of like garage rock. That's his forte for sure. And I mean, he can talk about that, but I think that was a lot of internet era blog digging probably, which was pretty huge. But yeah, I mean, I agree with the quote from the man, that art activates something in people and changes people in a way that I think about this a lot with American politics right now. Like, you can't really argue someone into empathy or into changing their point of view. But if you present them with something that's just like taps into the universal part of being a human, then maybe they can change that way. And I'm not saying that as like, I have the answer, just like I also wish to continue to be changed by this experience.
Tell us about your friendship with Adam. What does he bring to the table?
Well, I first met Adam. He was playing on a session for this great band called The Bear. I think that's the first time we met, right? And then he had a cool guitar. He seemed like a cool guy. And then they moved to town, and he was playing in a band called Belladere, which was like kind of almost like a power pop kind of vibe, which I really liked. And yeah, I just liked the music he was into, liked the stuff he was doing. And then I was pursuing this studio business, and sometimes there's like downtime in the studio, and I think it ended up just being like I just was like, hey, come record some stuff because I don't have anything going on right now, and I know that you like to make good music. Just come, come record some stuff. You don't have to worry about the money, and we'll just put the studio to use. And it's just kind of evolved from there, I think.
So in its evolution, in terms of his skills, his craft as a musician, can you tell us what you admire? about Adam?
He's very prolific. He's always he's got an endless well of ideas, which I think is great. Every day he sends me more stuff that he's working on, which is awesome. Just being able to, not just let it all out and not worry about too much about some people get really uptight and it takes them forever to write an album. Adam's probably got no telling how much stuff on his computer that I haven't even heard. And he's got great, just as a musician, he's great. As a session player, he's a great, one of the best bass players in town, ironically. So whenever there's a session going on, I usually get him to play guitar or bass I need a session guy,
Adam, those are some nice words. What would you like to share about Jamie?
What a nice guy. Yeah, I mean, it's funny that he said I had a cool guitar when we first met, because I actually borrowed his guitar on that session. That was his jazz master, not mine. So yeah, it's a backhanded self-compliment there, Jamie. That was good.
I thought you played the black Jaguar on that session.
It may have been there, but I remember this really tall guy has a jazz master. I wonder if he'll be okay with me using it. And yeah, I did. So, I mean, that was well over a decade ago now, which is crazy. But yeah, Jamie, could say the same about him, about work ethic of, he has kept the studio going, which is no small feat in our modern musical economy. And he's just one of the most, he's going to laugh when I say this, but he's a profoundly positive person. He's laughing. You can't hear him laugh because he comes across as very pessimistic and, I don't know, cynical, maybe the word, but he's just incredibly even keeled and you know, just gonna figure it out and gonna make it work. And musically, well, I mean, all our music sounds the way it does because he engineered all of it and mixed all of it. And I think that's a huge credit to him, that he is unafraid to take some of those influences that we were talking about earlier and let them flow through. I think a lot of engineers get stuck on well, this is how you're supposed to do something. And I think he's not intimidated to just throw that out the window and say, well, let's just try something. And if it's fun and exciting, then we'll stick with it. And then as a musician, almost every time that we're working on a song and I'm like, there's no way we can put anything else on this, he will then drop the main melody on top of it. He'll write the hook at the very end. So I don't think he gives himself enough credit as a guitar player or a musician in general. So I will do it now.
Kind words, kind words. Before we get into this brand new album, let's do another quote. This is from Billy Corgan, frontman for Smashing Pumpkins. And this is what he says. In 5 minutes, I could write you something that would have been on Siamese Dream. Some people could interpret that as extreme arrogance, and he's been known to have that reputation. But what I want to know in terms of that quote, I see it as confidence. So what I want to know from either of you, whomever wants to take this one, how has your confidence as a band evolved, and where specifically within the work?
I think that because of the way that we made the record, I'm not sure that confidence was ever an issue, because it didn't really seem like anybody was watching. If that makes sense, you don't really have to rise to the occasion if it doesn't feel like there is one in front of you. You kind of just, I guess we were confident that we thought it was good, and we thought that we were capable of playing, mixing, engineering, producing, all of that stuff. But beyond that, I don't, that's quite a quote to say that you could just do that. I don't know if he's trying to say that he's just constantly tapped into the source of wherever that came from. I think for us, Holy Island came out of a really intense 2 or 3 week writing session, more or less, where the songs were written in order. And then we spent a few months just kind of polishing up that initial burst. I definitely could not have written another song to add to the record after that period was over. I could have written other songs, I guess, but I'm not sure that they would have fit or held pace with that. Nat from Sonic Cathedral putting the record out, that can't help but be a nice confidence booster. Maybe instead of confidence booster, maybe the word validation would be better. But it's still, in turn, it's like chicken egg. Like if what you do receives some validation, you definitely feel better about it going forward.
Jamie, would you like to respond to that?
Yeah, for sure. I agree with what Adam said. And yeah, all of it. I don't think we were really thinking about, what people were thinking about when we made the record. But I will say live, though, playing with the sampler and playing guitar and do all that was like a learning curve that I feel more confident on, because it was really like experimental process figuring that out, like compared from the first show compared to the latest shows. So yeah, I do feel a lot more confident in the endeavor as a whole.
With this album, and I'd like to start talking about and getting inside the nuts and bolts and the weeds of it, the heartbeat, if you will. I want to start with actually just the title, Holy Island. So for people that aren't familiar with that, Adam, could you please remind the listener what is the Holy Island and where is it? And I'm sure you had so many other different names maybe for album titles. Why that?
So Holy Island is Lindisfarne, which is an island off the northeast coast of England, up in Northumbria, which of course begs the question, why did two guys from Alabama write about this ancient religious outpost, as some people have called it? I was playing in this band, like filling in for a tour called Lee Baines and the Gloryfires. Lee's music is amazing. If you haven't heard it before, check it out. But we played in Newcastle and we're going to play in Glasgow the next day. And so we're driving along the coast and saw across the water this castle fort looking thing. And the American boogie of like, you're just kind of overwhelmed by how old everything is and how interesting everything is over there. It's almost like a cliche at this point. I don't mind living that cliche. That's fine with me. I did it again this last tour. But so we get on Google Maps and I say, it's this place called Lindisfarne. And Lee recognized that and said, we got to try to go. And so if you know anything about it, there's a causeway on the way out there. So the tide comes in twice a day and cuts off the island from the mainland. Otherwise, you can walk or drive across. This crossing can be kind of perilous if you time it wrong. Like every year, a bunch of cars get stuck out there and ruined by the tide and people have to swim for it. And yeah, but we drove out there and just had kind of a profound experience walking around for a few hours. The history there is that these old Celtic monks from Iona made their way over there. This is all like in the 6, 7, 800s and established this monastery outpost. And we're kind of doing their thing. And, I've read before that like islands are so prevalent as the centers for these in Western and Northern Europe because they're trying to replicate like going out into the desert. That idea from really a lot of different religions. Like you go out into the desert to find this wisdom, find isolation, whatever, and then come back. So they're out on this island. And then what really stuck with me is that at a certain point, a bunch of Vikings showed up and attacked this little village, and mostly monastery, but there were also civilians, if you will, living there. Just that idea of this contemplative, beautiful place being hit with such violence so suddenly, that stuck with me. And I think as a place, actually, we went back on this tour and got to stay the night last month, which was phenomenal. But I think even if it's not a religious thing, I suppose it's a spiritual thing to acknowledge that there is just a vibe there. And maybe it's like an accumulation of human experience and history or whatever you want to call it, a certain quality of light, but it feels like a special place. And so to be there and to imagine something, just the worst of humanity arriving by boat and storming the shores. But it was still, I distinctly remember texting Jamie while we had kind of some music already going and saying like, what if we had a song cycle that was about this monastery on this island off the coast of England, which is, concept record is already like kind of a ridiculous thing to do. I think they're great. I love them, but as a as a work, it's pretentious, it's silly in a way, but that stuck with us and gave us this framework to kind of work through more modern concerns. I mean, I think so much of what's happened in the last 10 years, be it, the shocking rise of far right politics or COVID or whatever, was like unimaginable to us before they happened. And now we've had our wake up call and we're here, and it's like, oh, life is a mystery and has a lot of ups and downs. And like, how do we square that with our everyday life and what we wanted from the world, if that makes sense?
It does. And what I'm fascinated by is that based on what you just shared, Adam, I get a sense that this place resonates with you for a variety of reasons. So the geography, the land, spiritually, obviously, and its history. And a history, it sounds like not a lot of people know about.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's certainly not over here. There were a handful of folks who seemed to know the history. And I think maybe the biggest compliment that we would get on tour is, and it seemed to happen about once a show, somebody coming to the merch table and saying, I grew up near Lindisfarne. I can't believe that you guys did this record about it. And like the first few times you think, oh my God, I hope they don't hate it. We did something about their backyard or about this thing that is very important to them, but it was generally all positive. Actually, all positive, I guess. If somebody had something mean to say, they just bit their tongue. But yeah, to them, seeing their reaction to it, it's like, oh, this is a very special place. I don't know how widely known it is, even in the UK, but yeah, it is just this quiet corner. I mean, it's almost as far north as you can go in England.
Let's talk about the textures, the overall sound, the atmosphere that both of you got to create with this. So, Jamie, in terms of this album, straddling, balancing shoegaze, dream pop, these ambient textures, besides the location of the Holy Island and all the inspiration that was taken from that, were there any albums or musicians you were listening to beforehand that may have bled into this new album?
Yeah, there's definitely each song I think has its own influences, so it kind of varies song by song. All the basics of the songs were done by Adam at his house, and he was doing all kinds of no telling what all he was getting up to on pedal chains and stuff. And so then he would bring it to the studio, and there would be just all sorts of stuff to mess with or add to or subtract. But there was definitely some of the prior to him writing the album, we would very often listen to Slow Dive as specifically Sugar for the Pill. I think is such a great mix. So we had listened to that just hundreds of times in the studio. And I had worked on a shoegaze project for a friend of mine a few years, probably like 3 or 4 years maybe before this album. And so I had compiled several shoegaze reference songs, and so that it was just always on the studio computer. So I would just throw it on periodically. So there was, My Bloody Valentine. We listened to Talk Talk. We remember we dimmed the lights and listened to Talk Talk like all the way through. I think right, Adam was all the way through.
I think so, yeah. That was the great thing about Portside, Jamie's studios. We kind of will get sidetracked and look up and go, oh, that's like 90 minutes gone, because it's built to sound great in there. When you're listening to music and you have these huge monitors that, earbuds are great, but yeah, there was a lot of Slow Dive, My Bloody Valentine. That Talk Talk record was, especially the way that he uses his voice and silence and lyrics, was a big influence. Ride was in the mix too, for sure.
Can we go back to Iona? Bear with me here on this one. It might be a little bit of a stretch, but in terms of this song, it's got mystery to it. It's got really good tension in there. In my opinion, is tension something that you're cognizant of? Like you would literally say, you know what, this part, we want that tension. We want the ears feeling that.
Yeah, I was actually verbatim. That was what I was thinking when he sent me that the chord change and just like the beat does kind of build tension. That was literally what I was trying to accentuate when I came up with the little lead line on there was like a what would be like a tension and release idea, and that was just kind of what came to mind after playing with it for a little bit.
Well, and I think, yeah, he did it perfectly. If you hear tremolo on the record, it was most likely Jamie. The man is a tremolo machine, but I think maybe he keyed in on that before I did. Of again, we kind of embraced there not being rules about like you needed like verse, chorus, verse two, chorus, bridge, chorus. That it's I think of it as like the main part of the song and then a turn. And the turn is definitely the tension being released. And that's when Jamie does that great tremolo guitar part. And I think he keyed in on that before I did, of building into those kind of moments.
Those moments have these wonderful swirling movements to them. And as a whole, this album feels wide. It feels expansive. It feels cinematic at times. There's what I love, there's a little bit of breathing room in here. You're not just bombarded with all of these juggernaut sounds. But when you get hit by those sounds, fuck. So I have to know. Totally intentional, right?
Yeah, I mean, like you talking about the sequencing of like those moments of release, like Iona or Aiden is kind of the opposite of like it beats you up, and then there's the brief moment where again that's a Jamie part on the turn again that he wrote that melodically carries that, and that kind of happens in lieu of a chorus. And then there's a lot, Big Ships, Rowans, those are pretty full on. But yeah, the again back to that Talk record, Spirit of Eden, just how much silence there is on that, or how much is just barely going on. I was listening to that pretty constantly, like, doing my jogs around town or walking around or like being in motion and observing things day to day while listening to music is really huge to me. And I remember doing a lot of that and just thinking, man, it's like a compulsion to always want something to be happening in a song. And like a lot of the time, taking something away, be it, oh, I don't have to sing right here, or it can just be this little whispered line, or we don't need that guitar because of that guitar part. We built other things around it. So now the guitar part is almost implied. We tried to take away as many things as possible. I know that's like silly to say because you listen to the record and it's like they put 10,000 guitars on this thing, but we did try to make it breathe.
Jamie, do you want to say anything about that before I throw another quote at you guys?
I think I'll just add, I think sonically, just from a mixing standpoint, it is a little bit less maybe compressed than a lot of shoegaze will do the trick of kind of boosting frequencies that kind of jump straight into your ears, which I think is a cool trick. But for this, just to be a little different, we kind of didn't go that route. Although some of the songs do have it a little bit, and it's also maybe I would say slightly less compressed in like the mastering sense than a lot of records in this genre. So, it's hopefully a little bit different.
Here comes another quote. Adam, this one is for you. It's going back to Bono. He says this: the world is more malleable than you think, and it's waiting for you to hammer it into shape. What were you guys hammering on this? What was the driving force? And it could be thematic concerns, maybe. Obviously, instrumentation, composition, arrangement. What were you chasing after?
I think, I don't know that we were hammering anything other than, I mean, maybe it's like again, with this idea of space and leaving things out, like that can feel kind of revolutionary is too strong a word, but like it's freeing in a way to say like, oh, we don't have to do all of this. And at the same time, piling on as many guitars as we wanted to also felt awesome. And like I remember specific moments like after we kind of got the song Big Ships into shape, driving around, and I was driving and my wife was in the front seat. It was a beautiful evening. I'm like, this is good. I think this is good. We made this. This feels really good. And that's not like I guess it's a confidence thing to be like, oh, we did this, but it felt a lot more like we had for a set of songs kind of just let the muse take us somewhere, as cheesy as that sounds. Yeah, so I think maybe what's happened after making it, because again, we're not making it up. Like we assumed that we would just finish the record and put it on Bandcamp and like that would be it. And we were very proud of what we had done, but we didn't expect or really need any validation beyond that. I mean, we even talked about like, well, we're done with this one, we'll just make another one and put it up on Bandcamp too. Just keep doing that because this is fun and because we live in a place that honestly is kind of boring and there's not a lot. I mean, you ask any musician here, it's like that's part of the attractive thing is you can really just zero in on creating. And we wanted to be set up to do that for as long as possible. And I suppose the outward looking part now of finding, an ally in Sonic Cathedral and then finding all of these people on tour who are coming up and saying things to us like, I listened to this in this situation or whatever. And it's like, oh, it's not necessarily that we soundtracked a moment that you were already going to have. Like you think like us, you move through life like us, you value the same things. And it feels very good because we did kind of forge from rural Alabama a connection with people that we didn't imagine having. So I don't know that we'll see with the next round. Now that I guess we think people might be listening again. I don't know if that'll change our approach to how we make the record, but yeah, does that make sense? Jamie, does that sound right?
Yeah, I would say the way you describe it, I think is probably accurate. Is we were just hammering blindly, not really knowing what the medium that we were hammering was going to end up being.
Would either of you say there's a lot of darkness and light, beauty and dread on this?
Yeah, for sure. I think that's the main thing. To use your word again, tension of it is there's moments that are almost, at least trying for like ecstatic beauty. And then a lot of, I think, despair at times, or at least darkness. I think there's, like when I think of Iona, I kind of almost think of it like a folk horror song. I think that's you're talking about something that's inspired by an island with a causeway and, a small local populace. It's not hard to make like the Wicker Man jump from that. But in the same way that life is beautiful and terrifying all at once, and nature is beautiful and terrifying all at once, I think we tried to have the light and dark there, but hopefully not force either emotion, just try to let them come through.
It dawned on me whilst listening to this album, it felt very much like a Terrence Malick film to me, where he often explores those themes of the light and the dark, the chaos and the beauty, the birth, the death, all of those things, which I love, by the way. And that's why I think I felt cinematic in that regard. So with this album, Jamie, if you wouldn't mind handling this one, and the creation of it, did it make you appreciate history more?
Oh, there we go. I think so. I was not familiar with this story. I remember we pulled up the Wikipedia, and then we found out that it was what is it called? It's in what's the record called? Like the official record. Adam, you'll have to chime in. And I pulled that up and read that. And it was really interesting, and I think Am I correct in this, Adam? That there's even it's somewhere in there. There's like a mention of dragons because it was just such a like a cataclysmic event. It's really the actual story is really crazy. But yeah, it kind of made me think about the Northman movie or something like that. So yeah, and I love history anyway. So I'm always in for anything with some kind of like niche history. Niche history is the best for sure.
And Adam, did you feel like whilst making this record, did you feel like it would be too easy to kind of romanticize this part of the world in any way and get a little too cheesy at times with the music? Did that ever come into mind?
Yeah, I think, well, there's two things to that, right? Like, one, the story of the monks on Lindisfarne is a lot more complex than just like, here's these dudes trying to live the spiritual life, and then the bad guys came and killed them in the night or whatever. The monastery was also like holding all the gold for the king right across the way, and it's completely tied up in the complex politics of its time. It's not as just like black and white as that. And then of course, you don't want to just come off like a weird Anglophile American who is searching for sounds. I mean, we are. I mean, we'll just say that blatantly. Yeah, absolutely. We're completely influenced by all the bands that came out of like the Thames Valley scene, all of the Reading bands, Chapter Houses and Slow Dive, and obviously we've referenced Ride and the greats like My Bloody Valentine and Jesus and Mary Chain and all of that, and have listened to probably a lot more of that than we have American shoegaze. I don't know if I'm speaking out of turn there for Jamie, but yeah, the idea of what we did just have to accept on a certain level to tell the story through music and have it be universal to people who don't, you don't want to send somebody reaching for Wikipedia when they're listening to an album. You just want them to like feel whatever the thing is. And so you try to decide what that thing is and then have it come through, because ultimately you want to write good pop songs. They just have these more big ideas, I guess, but there's a lot of great Phil Spector songs that are just about heartbreak. And like at the center of this is heartbreak of a certain kind.
What song created the most problems for you?
Do you have one in mind, Adam?
Jamie is in the fog of new parenthood that he doesn't remember how long it took to do Aiden. We had to it's simple things that there's always a song that you just want to burn down and start again. It's like, oh, we could definitely get to the end faster if we just started over instead of trying to fix these things, because that one, all of these came together so fast, and that one maybe had some of the problems of when that happens. And all of it was my fault because I was being sloppy in building the foundations of the song. But it's simple things like, why don't these drums sound good? Why doesn't this kick pattern go with this bass? Why doesn't this happen? Why doesn't very the building blocks of music kind of stuff. And yeah, I just remember being like, how do we make this sound cool? And of course, Jamie came in and just, here comes the fuzz and the tremolo, and it sounded awesome. And we got there. But yeah, I remember thinking we should just throw the song out for sure.
That has to actually totally slipped my mind. I guess it's like one of those situations once it's done, you just remember the positive aspects of it, because I remember it all just being fun.
I mean, it was still fun. It was still a problem to solve, but Iona was kind of complex, but it in the fun way, it came together. And then Aiden was like, how are we going to make this palatable to other human beings? This just kind of sucks. And we got it. It just felt like it both was anemic and had technical issues, but solved them. It was all good. And it's funny because it just sounds it's like a 4-chord song, But I remember after working on those two feeling once we got to the Big Ships, Rowan's part of the record, it was going to be easy after that. And it was pretty easy.
What is it that you want the listeners to take away with after they're done listening to this album?
I think hopefully inspiration. I mean, that's kind of the whole the whole like Ouroboros of music or whatever, it's like somebody listens to something, they say, that's kind of neat. This inspires me to do this. It's like, that's essentially what folk music is, like, well, I like this part. I don't like this other part. I'll take what I like and I'll make something out. So it does. I guess you don't have to be a musician listening to it making music, but if it sparks some kind of creativity or interest in looking up the story or looking up what is Muscle Shoals, Alabama, or what are some other what is shoegaze, what is that, or I'd like to play guitar. This sounds easy, and or I'd like to put a bunch of pedals together, whatever it is, like as long as it's sparking inspiration in other people, I think that would be amazing.
Thank you. I appreciate that answer. Adam?
Yeah, I think that's a great answer. And I also hope that it's, I think maybe baked into that is like, well, if these guys can do it, then surely I can also make a meaningful contribution because everybody can. But I also hope, you referenced Terrence Malick earlier, and there are works of art like I think his films maybe do it better than just about anybody's, that leave me with a feeling that lingers for like, I still remember the first time that I saw all of his films, despite revisiting them a lot of times. It may not surprise you to find out that I'm a massive fan with the kind of music that we make. Yeah, that idea of like emerging on the other side of a record slightly changed, even if it's you look at your day slightly differently than you would have otherwise. And even if we don't hit that deep, I hope we were nice wallpaper as you made your way through the day. But the ideal is definitely almost like walking out of like a good museum or something. Like the city kind of looks different around you afterwards. I think that's what a great record does for me.
Both of those answers. Love it. Adam, whilst playing some of these songs live, did they change your perception, the way you feel about these songs? And if so, what changed?
I think all change was for the better. There were none that I wasn't confident in. I thought at worst, like, we made this, and if these people want us to play right now, then they kind of know what they're going to get, if that makes sense, especially on this UK tour with the record already being out. That's like a very, again, I'll use the word validating and like kind of freeing feeling to say, well, they came tonight, so like they know what they're in for. I do think that, like Jamie said earlier in the show, we had to learn how to play. And part of that is that we have never used a sampler and drum machine before this band, and kind of had to go through this process of like, oh, we have this album that we feel good about, and now we want to play the songs live. And like, what the hell does that look like? And I remember I worried about it. I had anxiety over it for sure. And then, getting a sampler and kind of seeing what people can do with that now, and learning how to integrate it into our workflow so that, you don't want it. I didn't want to play to a track. That was really important to us. And we always kind of joke, like, you want there to still be the space for something to go wrong, because I think that's a big part of live music, is like you are recognizing the vulnerability of the people on stage. And if it's just a track that's going to play for, exactly 4 minutes and 12 seconds, then that's not as exciting. But the record is essentially like chopped up in this box that I can manipulate in real time, which, again, I'm just like a guitar player from Alabama. So that was a learning curve for us, and kind of figuring out what parts were important for us to be playing with that and how to get that to translate. But, fortunately, again, I hate that he wasn't there, but we put in the legwork making the record and figuring the sound out in shows around here. So by the time we really hit these album release shows, for lack of a better term, it felt like we were really cooking along.
And in that cooking along, were there any songs during a show that you decided, let's flesh this out a little bit more? Let's extend it by 1 or 2 minutes. Let's go epic here. Was it Morning Bell? Holy Island? What was it?
Well, the one danger with touring your first album is that, like, you have to play the whole album. You know what I mean? Like, the only other song that we have is War Machine, so, or at least one that has been released. So that was kind of by necessity, but also, yeah, again, to kind of feed into that idea of live performance as tightrope walking in a way, but spontaneity is really important to me and it being a little different night to night. Iona was one that we always stretch out and try to let go in whatever direction it might. And then Morning Bell, also trying to, there's so much studio stuff happening on that track, on the record, that you can't really do an exact replication of that live without just pressing play on the track itself, and that feels silly. So we have kind of reworked it into that same feeling of like a chop up kind of disassociative experience, but also the guitars get kind of epic at the end. So those are the two that we really let do their thing, though all of them are a bit longer and a bit going for the epic.
Jamie, is there anything else you would like to share about this album that we haven't touched on?
Well, from your last question, I think Big Ships is pretty different now. The live version of Big Ships versus the record is there's like I'm playing a totally different guitar part and everything on that. And I think Todd did that. I wish Todd was here. We love Todd, and that one that Adam usually goes off a little bit on some lead stuff. Yeah, as far as like what else, what was the question again? What is there anything else that I would like people to know?
Yeah.
I think we've covered it pretty well. I think just I would like to hear what other people think about it. Like I just I'm glad that it's out there. I love every now and then people comment like, "Oh, this sounds like XYZ record," and there's been several times where it's been a record that neither Adam or I have listened to at all, and that's amazing. That's the kind of stuff I love to see because it's just like people are just connecting their own dots. I think that's awesome.
Well, it is one hell of an album. And if I remember correctly, I'm not going to quote him, but I remember Nat from Sonic Cathedral was really singing your praises in terms of get ready, world. Sister Ray Davies is coming. And he does such a good job of championing not just your work, but obviously others on Sonic Cathedral. And he's fucking right. Right? So I'm not saying it needs to be melancholy and infinite sadness, double album or anything, but that's what's incredible. You pack so much in 35 minutes, maybe. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that was an accident. Again, we joke about like, how much material do we have for a show now? But again, it kind of came out of that like 2 or 3 week period. And it's not like the door closed and I didn't feel like I could add any more, but you kind of look around and say, okay, I think that's it.
Yeah.
I don't know. To me, and Jamie can have his own input on this, but I mean, it felt like it was done and like adding anything else would have just been unnecessary.
Yeah, and I think it's probably because some of the songs are little vignettes, but I think that's sort of adds to the vibe of like just history being ephemeral, just fleeting by. In my opinion, I don't know if that's like too pretentious or whatever, but you're just seeing like a little tapestry kind of floating by or something like that.
What's coming down the line for the band? Anything that you can share?
Yeah, I mean, we have been pretty hard at work on the next LP, and Jamie joked about like how many songs are currently on my computer. It's a lot. It's a lot of songs. We kind of have the opposite problem this go around, and it does change maybe how we're approaching it because we know now that people are going to listen to it, which is not necessarily a position we expected to be in with this. So hopefully it doesn't change too much what we're doing. I don't think it will. Jamie may go, no, the egos are too high now. We're going to be crippled in self-doubt because of it. But I think so much of this band is me and Jamie, either when we did it all day today, like sending music back and forth, either songs that we're listening to or, I was working on 2 different songs all day today, sending it to him and sending lyric sketches that are also just tied into an ongoing conversation about just how we are moving through our lives and observing the world and I would assume that the band is as much about like non-music talk as it is the music talk, because all of that everything that we're talking about feels like something that grew out of what we're talking about already. And, the single War Machine purpose of a system is what it does, being the first thing. Like there's no gap between that and the record to me. Like that's all like kind of one idea, and hopefully we'll just continue that conversation.
Let's do some fun time. Wrap it up here. I'm going to throw out a little prompt. You just respond best you can. Don't think too long and hard about it, and have some fun. Here we go. Jamie, you ready?
I'm ready.
Are you an early bird or a night owl?
I think naturally I'm a night owl, but I'm converting to early bird. It's gonna be 4:45 for the next who knows how long.
Adam, coffee or tea?
Coffee.
Jamie, a trip to the beach or a trip to the mountains?
I would prefer mountains, honestly.
Do you prefer texting people or phone calling?
Texting, for sure.
Jamie, would you rather be able to fly or be invisible?
That's a hard one. I think fly.
A couple more. Adam, would you like to be diverse and the ability to speak many languages, or have the ability to communicate with animals?
This is a tough one, but I'm going to go animals.
Jamie, vinyl or cassette?
I think I would, like, if I was going to buy something, I would choose vinyl, but the cassette was the first media format I was ever able to buy was a cassette, which is really cool. And cassettes are really cool. And no hate on the cassette at all. Yeah. Yeah. I just put the pencil in there.
Last one. Adam, this one is for you. An album people should listen to before they leave this earth.
This is tough because obviously there are records that are great that they probably have already heard, right? This band that I really love, the Clientele, they made a record called Strange Geometry that I don't know if it's my favorite of theirs, but I do think it's probably their best accomplishment. And they do a thing that if I had to like show somebody what do I love about music, that would be a contender, that album. So because it's on my mind and it's a rainy day here in Alabama, I'll say, yeah, the Clientele, Strange Geometry.
Jamie, Adam, thank you both. I've really enjoyed this conversation, and congratulations on this fantastic, extraordinary album called Holy Island. You can grab it on Bandcamp, listen to Spotify, their website, check out any of the latest releases, all that good stuff. And I take away a lot of intelligence from you two, friendship and hard work that you've put into your music. So I salute you on that. And again, congratulations on your shows with Chapter House.
Thanks so much for having us, and thanks for all the kind words.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been a pleasure.
Oh, wait. We have some Bono quotes to end this, but this time we ain't talking about these quotes. Here we go. A great song should lift your heart, warm the soul, and make you feel good. It also says this: I'm not interested in being a rock star. I'm interested in changing the world. We thought we had the answers. It was the questions we had wrong. And finally, there's no end to grief. That's how we know there's no end to love. My name is W, host of this podcast feature known as Surprise Cast. And remember this, everyone. Great music is all around us. All you have to do is keep those ears open. Ciao.